Well, thank you guys for being here. This is the video game lawyer panel that we do every year. The goal of this panel is pretty free form. We've got assembled a really cool panel of lawyers who work in the video game industry. We'll each introduce ourselves. We'll ask maybe a couple of hot topics, but really this is a place for you to ask us questions. Ask us questions about stuff that's happening in the legal world. Ask us about what it's like to work as a video game lawyer. Ask us our favorite game, who knows, whatever. But the one thing I always like to do to start off these panels is to get a sense from the audience, because it's always really interesting to do a little demographics. First, raise your hand if you are like just a gaming enthusiast. You can raise your hand multiple times. Okay. Raise your hand if you are a indie developer. Okay, we always cool. Got a couple people. Raise your hand if you are a video game lawyer yourself or an aspiring lawyer. Okay, okay, cool. So sometimes we actually get a lot of law students, which is cool. But that's all good. Yeah. I mean, why not, right? If you're into video game law, it's a place to be people. Cool. I'm gonna go down the line and I'm gonna ask everyone to introduce yourselves. We'll start with Scott.
I get to go first. I'm the panel crasher.
That's right.
So I'm Scott Kelly. I'm a partner at Banner & Wyckoff in Washington, D.C. We're an IP boutique. So I'm the intellectual property lawyer on the panel. My background's in computer science, so my focus is on software and mostly on the patent side, though I work with clients on copyrights and trademark issues. I also teach video game law at American University in DC, so I'm happy to sort of tackle any sort of questions that come up today, but the topics that are near and dear to my heart are the patent side, AI legal issues, and things in that vein. And I'll just set the precedent that we'll all mention what our favorite games are. My favorite game right now would be, well, I'm just really into Colony Sims, so I like Oxygen Not Included in RimWorld a lot. The Monster Train 2 has been getting a lot of playtime for me. Yeah, that's true. Spider Heck?
Spider Heck.
It's like a Towerfall inspired game that I keep beating my 10-year-old at.
Shots fired. I'm Joe Newman. I have been in the games industry as a lawyer for over a decade. I worked in-house at Electronic Arts for a number of years. Then I was at Ubisoft. Then I was in private practice and just counseling everybody from like the Tencents and the Amazons, Riot, Epic to indie games and kind of everywhere in between. Right now I'm at a startup called KID. We do automated turnkey solutions for kids' privacy and safety protection in video games. So you may have seen our names in the news for things like our integrations with Discord and stuff like that. My area of focus is kids' privacy in particular, but just general privacy and consumer protection issues as they arise in the games industry. My favorite game, I have a list, but the thing that I'm really into is I got really into F-Zero GX again.
Woo!
I got Switch 2.
That's right.
And I just recently got 100% again, and I'm really proud of that. Thank you. Take it away,
Yeah, I'm Felix. I'm a partner at Osborne Clark. We're a European law firm, so I'm originally from Germany, but based in San Francisco now. So I take care of our American clients in the time zone, which means I do very, very little actual law, except when it's video games law when I jump on it, and a lot of just drinking with clients. So I've been with Osborne Clark for over 20 years. I started as a baby law student and been a lawyer for way more than 10. Actually, I met Joe way back when he was my client, and we were fighting a German consumer group that was suing his company, and we won.
Yay! Yay! Yay!
Happy playing Ubisoft right now.
So my practice, when I actually do practice and not just project manage, is soft IP, privacy, youth protection, consumer protection, general contractual stuff. I'm also, as of 3 weeks ago, a California attorney, so we might talk about what that does to my brain, being a European and an American lawyer at the same time, because it's not always compatible. And the last game that I really binged was Echoes of Wisdom, so the new Zelda game where you actually play Zelda, which was an amazing game I thought, and now I'm looking forward to finding the time to finally play Expedition 33.
Yeah!
So that's on my list. Yeah.
Oh, terrific. Thank you. So my name's Jay Sinha. I'm at the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Privacy and Civil Liberties. And a part of my job is to help support the video games industry by, essentially the ecosystem of cyber division and FBI, and making sure that they have the help they need to take down websites that are maliciously stealing video games, or that we advise on insider threat. So when rogue employees decide they want to release a trailer too early and kind of take away the joy that the rest of the people who actually worked on the game have, and kind of give that out to the world before it's time. We help with advise companies on how to secure themselves that way. We also help partner with international data transfers. As you might have heard, some countries really want to make sure that the United States protects data of their citizens, and so my office created an entirely new court called the Data Protection Review Court to assist in making sure that the European Union felt comfortable that European citizens had their data protected when it came to the United States. And so all your favorite video games that have online accounts, that data gets transferred to American servers, and we, as the government, essentially underwrite the trust for that transaction. So I'm just delighted to be invited. It's always kind of like, oh, wait a minute, so do you have a game? Is that why you're here? But I think this community's been so welcoming, and I think it's just really incredible what this industry has to deal with in terms of cutting edge technology, public policy implications, that the Department of Justice really want to help. But I will clarify that I am speaking in my personal capacity.
Oh, we'll do the
Yeah, okay, all right, yeah. So,
all right,
and favorite game real quick, right now I'm playing Sneaky Sasquatch on Apple Arcade.
Oh,
It's legit. And then I'm waiting for Final Fantasy Tactics Remastered.
Yeah!
Thank you. Rams of forever. All right, thank you. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Okay.
All right, David, take it away.
Hi, I'm David. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. I am Senior Counsel for Privacy at ZeniMax, which is the parent company of Bethesda and Software and a couple of other studios based here in Maryland. Before I went in-house about 3 years ago now, I was doing privacy law at a DC law firm. And I've always been a good gamer and really excited to do this. I only do Friday night panels for my friend Joe, who I know from law school. Favorite game, I'm gonna give like my normal answer to that, which is Mario Kart overall, just because that's the game I've been playing for so long. Also, shout out to Spider-Hack because I heard it before, and I love couch co-op games now because I play with my kids, and that's a great one. So if you haven't played it, it's awesome.
I'll connect to that recommendations later.
Yeah. So as you can see, this is a stacked panel. We've got people from private practice, law firms. We've got the government. We've got US DOJ. We've got in-house at games companies. We've got people with a wide variety of experiences. I think it's worth a round of applause for just the panel. I have questions, but I'm actually curious. Do people have questions already, burning questions? Just I'm seeing nods. Raise your hand if you have a question now. Okay. It's only a handful, so I'm going to actually, we'll do Q&A in a second. I'm going to ask just a basic icebreakery question of what's the legal topic right now that is sort of keeping you up at night, and that you want to talk about. We'll go in reverse order. We don't have, David, what is kind of your day in the life?
I think you know my answer, Joe, which is kids issues and kid safety. So even though we actually focus on mature titles, that doesn't mean that kids don't like to play our games. And so there is an increasing amount of regulation, both internationally and in the U.S., especially at the state level, on kids playing video games, and not just younger kids, under 13, 13 to 17, teens, etc. So that has been a big part of my day-to-day.
What about you, Jay?
It's after last month, the FBI Atlanta office took down a number of pirated websites, and they were posting like $150 million worth of pirated games. And we know that takedown successful. That was really in cooperation with Dutch authorities. But now there's always a question of what's the vacuum going to result in. You know, what is people are going to want to fill in the gap, and what's the how, is there anything we can do that like the consumer is happy about with reducing piracy and making sure developers get their due? And so that's one of my.
So for me, I mean, it's a ton of different people, different things, but to just pick one that's maybe a little bit specific, a group of consumer organizations in the European Union has started coming after games companies for not, according to them, properly disclosing the prices of things that you buy in games. And basically they're taking some European consumer protection legislation and interpreting that in such a way that it would mean if I want to spend 5 gems to buy the sword in the game, that's the same as spending actual money on something. So every time I spend 5 gems for a sword, it's a whole contract, and I need to get a confirmation email and all that stuff, and I have a withdrawal right, and so that would completely break the immersion of the game. They're also saying that anytime you sell a sword, you have to disclose the price not just in gems or gold or whatever it might be, but also in actual euros, which of course you all know this is a bit challenging, because what 5 gems cost could be 0 if I got them as a reward for grinding for a bit, or it could be €1 if I bought the 5, or it could be 50 cents if I bought 50 at a time and they had a different price. So they're now taking a very strict view on this. It's so far it's not law, but there's some procedures ongoing, and basically all of our clients are dealing with this, because everyone that has a live service game has this issue, and this is something that is also keeping us up because there's not a really clear, good solution to it. So that's going to be interesting to watch.
I forgot the disclaimer. So as you probably have heard if you've been to a legal panel before, we are speaking in our individual capacities, not on behalf of our respective companies. Our opinions are our own. Please don't ask us questions about our specific clients or game, or we'll dodge them. But yeah, anyway. So my did I just, no. Okay. This is not legal advice. Yes. Yes. This is not legal advice. We're not your lawyers. If you want to talk to us to get legal advice, talk to us afterwards, and we'll hook you up. But we're just here to have fun. Okay. So what is keeping me up at night? So you may be aware there's a lot of talk in the news about age verification laws. Yeah. So there was a big Supreme Court case recently about age verification in the United States in the porn context, but even across the pond in the EU and the UK, we're seeing a thing called the Online Safety Act, which is affecting a lot of sites that are having to do age assurance. So there's a lot to talk about what that means, how to do it. Full disclosure, our company, one of the things we do is we provide age assurance, and we try and do it in a way that is privacy preserving and secure and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, that is a big focus of what I'm doing right now. But yeah, just in general, getting games live with the age-appropriate experiences.
Yeah, for me, I'll just kind of go with AI. And certainly there's a million issues there, both in how it impacts the legal practice, but in how it impacts intellectual property rights, both from the perspective of creators and the use of AI in creation, as well as the use of creative works in training. But as far as picking one issue, I think it is the whether there exists intellectual property rights in works where AI was used as part of the creation, both from a copyrightability and patentability standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. The AI stuff is always an evergreen topic.
You could probably go back and I'll say, oh yeah, and then what he said too.
Yeah.
Because age assurance, I mean, this is what I was referring to when I said my brain melts if I try to use my American and my European ones with some things.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, before we get into like a deep discussion on any one of these topics, I do think let's take a question or two, and hopefully that spurred some ideas. I know you had a question. Do you want to?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think one of the hot topics right now, especially within the gaming world, is this dawning realization on the consumer side of just how much ownership of media is slipping out of their fingers, right? This has been ongoing for quite some time, but between the fact that many cartridges that you buy for the Switch 2 aren't really games, they're just an access key to the game, and Nintendo reserves the right to basically break your console if they don't like what you're doing with it, the fact that when you download games on Steam, well, you didn't buy that game, you basically bought the right to play that game. And you know, of course, to some extent, to tap into one of your guys' burning issues, I do think this does incentivize a certain demographic a little more towards piracy, because they feel this insecurity that this media that they felt, you know, I purchased this fair and square, could slip out of their fingers at any moment. And so I was wondering if, one, any of you had insights from the legal side of that you think is missing on a lot of the consumer weigh-in on these sorts of issues. And two, when you when you buy access to this media in good faith, you generally hope, okay, I'm going to buy this Steam game, I'm going to adhere to the terms of service, and I'm going to, you know, behave myself so that they don't do anything with my game because I'm just here to play my game.
Yep.
But when you are in the worst case scenario, because you don't have any rights to this thing, when you're in the worst case scenario and you do find that game somehow taken away from you, what even are your steps for recourse?
Right. Okay. Cool. So, David, in case, question was.
I can hear it.
Oh, you can hear it? Okay, cool.
Yeah. I'll let you know if I can, but I can hear that.
Okay, sweet. But yeah, digital ownership, right? It's a super hot topic. Some of y'all may have seen the Stop Killing Games initiative. Like, there's a lot of discussion about how do you maintain ownership rights over the games that you play, and then also like what are your recourse options if a game is taken away from you. I'm looking around.
I'll just say one thing. I mean, when we're trying to tell judges economic damages, they're like, well, my experience when I buy a cartridge is like, you know, $50, and that's it, right? And then a lot of the victims will say, wait a minute, we support them through updates. We support them, making sure the user-generated content's safe. There's a lot of assurance that goes behind the software that the companies aren't getting credit for. Like, the economics don't make sense to me. I'm just a government. You know, I don't understand how like they can keep the games at like $60 when there's like quadruple the amount of effort, labor that goes into it, not just the game's release. Like you said, right? When I bought the game back in the day, that was it. I didn't get an update. Like, there was nothing, that glitch, I abused that in my speedruns. I don't care, right? But now what happens, I expect you to fix it, and I'm not gonna pay you a dime for fixing it. I get to rant like this because I see the victim side trying to prove to judges who have no concept of this, like how much money goes into supporting the player experience after the fact, and like how much these companies are asked to do so much, like the, curated content for communities. Right? We want safe communities where people you have to pay for that, and that's not, I don't know if that's built into the price of the games. I've never worked in a video game company, but like I just think about how much more goes into it, and I also think that a lot of these legislatures are picking up these companies in social media laws, right? Because in a game world, you're talking to other people, there's profile for gamers, and guess what that sounds like to a legislator who writes a law about social media companies, social media thing. They need a bit more of a flexibility if the law, like in a state, goes really wild and tries to pull them in to kind of rewrite the license to do it. If it was a cartridge you owned, you might be stuck with it. And I think that's something to think about, but as you can tell, I got a lot of opinions, so. It's not there.
I mean, there's probably two things that sometimes get mixed up in this debate, where the one is, you buy the cartridge and it's like a single player game, but it stops working one day even though your device is all fine. I mean, I have an NES way back in the day. It probably still exists. My cousin still plays with it, but it didn't get used a lot. It was at my grandma's house. The kids used it twice a year when we came to visit. So it's in great condition, so that might still work for another 30 years, but when that console breaks, those cartridges are going to be worthless too, right? So we're kind of, we're used to that being maybe longer time frames, but even with back in the day, the cartridges you bought, theoretically you could play it forever, practically you couldn't. Now, when you have a completely solo single-player game, I get that there's some frustration there that somebody can flip a switch somewhere and it doesn't work anymore. And I think that legislation might be coming to address that in a certain way. But I think it is unlikely that that is going to take the shape that the Stop Killing Games initiative is asking for, where it's like, oh, give us the code to run our own servers and unlock it and all of that, because there's a million issues of cybersecurity, of IP involved in that makes that not so easy. The other part of that is, and this is I think what you kind of had in mind also when you were talking about what it costs to support those things, is when you're playing a game that's an online game, it requires a server, it requires online functionality, it requires someone to foot the bill for that. I don't think that legislation is coming to force games companies to keep their servers up and running for a specific amount of time. I mean, I see, and my clients I know do this right, also because they come and ask me before and I tell them that that's what they should do, but not because there's a clear law that says that, but just because that's the right thing to do, is to say, well, if you are going to turn off a game, well, you stop selling in-game stuff at one point, and you make everything free, and you tell people with a couple months' notice, and then you close it down, so that they can, right? I mean, there's not really, and whether we're talking under US law, or whether you're talking under German law, that's where I'm originally from, or other kind of European Union laws, there's not a clear answer to the question of what your rights are as a consumer. Personally, I think that games companies maybe sometimes could do a little better. And then there's black sheep that then bring the problems for everyone, because then now consumer advocates are saying, oh no, we need to force people to promise to keep a game running for X number of years, even if they're paying money after a year or two. Because of course what happens is, if the game is really successful, nobody's going to turn it off. GTA 5 online, or GTA Online, is still running. It's been running for 10 years, it's still making money. Nobody's going to pull the plug on that anytime soon. But then you have other games with a cult following, but it's not very many people, they don't spend a lot of money, it doesn't make sense to run this game anymore. There has to be a way for a company to say, okay, this is when we're pulling the plug, because we're losing money on this now consistently. We're not going to get any new players into this old game because they're all playing stuff that's much more modern and the new hype thing, and there has to be a way to turn it off. So I think we are going to get to a point where if somebody turns off a game with no notice, there might be a right to a refund. That might develop under something like unfair competition law, where if I sell you this, I'm implying that I'm not going to pull the plug tomorrow. But like between tomorrow and 6 months, you don't really know where that limit is. Like how soon after you sold the last copy can you pull the plug and not expose yourself to liability? I'm sure we're going to get there at some point. But it's not going to be in the shape of you will be able to play this game forever for as long as your device works, because it's not sustainable to force companies to do that. That's my take on it.
I definitely see, just to summarize, I see both sides of the argument clearly. I'm super pissed off because I bought some smart light bulbs off of Amazon, and for some reason, the company that provides them no longer exists, and I can't control the light in my house anymore. I have to get up and turn it off. And it's annoying because that's why I paid for the light bulb, right? Because I wanted it to be a smart light bulb, and it got dumb for some reason. But on the other hand, just to tell one anecdote, and then I can move on, when I was in private practice, I had a client, I won't name the client, but like they were actively in trouble because their game had no protections for kids whatsoever. It was an online game, and they were getting threatened with being taken off the App Store because, you know, their game was not health compliant. And they looked at the numbers and they said, look, this is kind of a dead game. We will pay you, our lawyer, to just argue that it doesn't actually appeal to kids and fight it that way. Because that's cheaper than retrofitting it, getting a bunch of engineers to build in retrofitting up. And honestly, that's like the numbers, if you look at the numbers, it was a game that had been out for a really long time. It was on its last leg. So like just, you know, it's expensive to run a game. And to run a game that has live services means keeping up with constantly evolving laws. And for me, that was actually kind of like the origin story of why I went to the startup I'm at, because I'm like, okay, we need to make this cheaper. We need to make it more accessible to actually comply with these laws, because that is going to be the business decision. Like, people are going to continue to just run games non-compliant for as long as they can get away with until being compliant is affordable.
Which, by the way, is horrible if you're outside counsel and you're telling your client, this is not compliant, this is not compliant, this is not, you need to change this and this and this and this. And then they say, yeah, but we've been doing this for years and nobody's called us on it, so like, why?
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, maybe you continue to be lucky. I still have to tell you that this is what you should be doing, right? And so you always have these discussions.
So anyway, this is the perspective that I'd like to bring to the stop killing games and things. Like, Jay's point is really valid. It's really expensive to keep a game running for so many reasons that are possibly invisible to you if you're not keeping up with the law. Again, I'm pissed off that I have to get a new light bulb, but I also understand like there's a reason that games have to get shut off sometime.
Experimental.
Joe, I could just
David.
on that, actually. Like, when we have to sunset a game, like, there's actually a lot of thought that goes into that, and how it's done, and like, you know, like, I think Felix said before, like, can we make everything free, etc. But what I found interesting, I didn't know this before I joined a game company, that even sometimes if you have an older game, hasn't been updated in a while, if there are no developers, you know, assigned to the game, so you're either going to have to like move a whole team over or just hire a whole new set of developers just to update the game in order to update it, to make everything free, to meet the current standards on the various platforms, because you can't release it today if it doesn't meet today's security standards, even though it's an 8-year-old game. So these are definitely things that I think, you know, at least our company and many companies think about when we sunset a game, and like, you know, we also don't enjoy it, but sometimes it has to be done.
Yeah. So speaking as a fan and a lawyer, I mean, I'll take the fan side here and say that I do definitely feel that pain, and I think that you know, our other panelists are working with a lot of like modern game companies with a lot of modern problems, but I also hear the issue from like, so we've gone to kind of sunsetting a game is actually a lot of work, and why do they have an obligation to keep running those servers? Like, that's the part that, okay, that is an obligation that maybe it's unfair to sort of put on them. But the question of, okay, but can they just take it away? Rather than I can still play Super Metroid on my Super Nintendo and nobody can turn that off. What I would say there is one thing that we do often in the law is we would just go back to first principles, and contracts are just ultimately private law. And so a lot of times people will ask me, well, can we do that under the law or not? And the answer is just, you can contract for whatever you want. And so this is kind of a scenario where creative lawyering sort of made it worse for everybody. And if this is something that you want to see changed, the way to change it is you know, voting with your wallet, and then also talking about legislation. So I mean, the efforts that are out there, the push for the Stop Killing Games initiative and other initiatives, I mean, it's all well-intentioned, and I think it's doing good work, but yeah, you kind of have to approach it both in terms of what's realistic for the industry, but then also what's fair for the consumers, because I think about all the great value I get from my old games that I can still play, and the fact that there's a lot of games right now that I'm not going to be able to play because they can't phone home, that's really concerning.
I need to add one quick asterisk to the, you can put in your contract whatever you want.
In the US.
In the US.
And even in the US, I'm not sure that's as true as it might have been at one point, but certainly not in Europe. So I always tell people, as a European consumer, I will sign whatever they put in front of me because it's either fair or unenforceable. So I'm a lawyer and I don't read any terms and conditions when I'm out there as a consumer signing up for anything.
Yeah.
If it's under European law, so the one thing I will check is like, what law is this under? But the good thing is if you live in Europe and you're a consumer, your home law applies no matter what, whatever the contract says. Which is, of course, what makes things very complicated for my clients because we have to take all these US creative lawyering terms and conditions that say we may reasonably within our discretion do whatever we want, and that's literally what they say in so many words. And then we have to turn them into something European that is very clear and says, these are your rights, we are not taking them away from you. So they will look very different.
Europe is different counter. We're going to keep it. All right, cool. That was a really, thank you so much for the question. A round of applause for the question. We got really deep, really fast on a really important topic. We still have a half an hour or so.
I saw a bunch of other questions.
Yeah, so let's start getting wrapping. Okay, now we got all sorts of stuff. All right, I saw you first.
Recently, there were a lot of certain type of game removed from Steam and HIO. Basically, the credit card companies can say, "Oh, we don't like these games. If you sell them, you won't use this anymore." So they can enforce their morality. Is there any kind of legislation trying to?
Yeah.
So more neutral.
So 1984 thought control. So the questions about MasterCard and Visa and the HIO controversy with 18+ games. Anyone want to jump on it immediately, or?
Well, I can say there is law that can potentially apply to the situation, which is, oh my God, I can't believe I'm saying this because I know nothing about it, antitrust law. Because of course these payment providers have a pretty outsized amount of power because they can turn off the spigot, right? So that is a legal theory you might explore to say, well, you're abusing a dominant position if you are trying to determine what types of payments can go through your service and what cannot, as long as we're still talking about legal content. The real problem there is that I think worldwide we cannot really agree on what the limits are to, like, this is an okay entertainment product, and then this crosses into the territory of obscene and then illegally beyond. Like, we talk about pornography, where most people probably agree that among consenting adults, regular porn is fine, you can have that, but then when you have child sexual abuse, or you have animals in there, or a certain amount of violence, then it becomes not okay. And the question is, where do we draw those lines? And there is a bit of a blurred line there where those companies are saying, we're just within kind of the general consensus, and it hits certain games where other people would say, no, this is still on the green side of the line, and they're saying it's on the right side. So because of that blurred line, it's not clear that the outcome would be, oh yeah, with antitrust we remove this. If the credit card company said, we're not processing payments anymore for a game that, I don't know, like favors a political opinion over another, then it would be much easier to combat that with those tools that exist.
Cool. Anyone else want to hop on that, or we'll keep going? Getting through speech. Okay. All in the back.
Big fan of antitrust here.
Yeah. I like your swag.
What kind of protections would be in place for somebody who decides to reverse engineer or create their own sort of server platform for a service that was, discontinued, or one that doesn't contain IP, from the actual maker of the game.
Yep.
It's just processing the ones from zeros that are no longer able to make my official server.
Cool. All right. Yep. Cool. All right. So the question was about reverse engineering and the legality of, kind of reverse engineering game for interoperability and running your own servers and things like that. Again, reminder that we aren't your lawyers. We can't give you legal advice. I'm going to look towards Scott's direction.
Not so much my domain, actually.
No?
I like
You
to
guys
dig
more
into
of that?
stuff. Yeah.
All I'll say is that, like, I think, I'm just sympathetic from a legal standpoint of, like, I'm just trying to think of other concepts where this is an issue, right? So, like, in medical devices, there are companies that try an experimental device, they do it on a population that says, I really need help, I'm willing to try this experimental device, that company goes under, right? And then there's a question about community health organizations, can they pick up the updates or the critical vulnerabilities? I think that's something where, it's another example of organizing, right? There should be a community of tech adjacent or tech community that says we can help fill in the gap in circumstances that the market's not able to deliver on. Nonprofits regularly do that, and I think I think if you track that ecosystem, you might find some existing ways to do it. But I don't want to give. Yeah, I think in your specific thing about the fan run things, that's more specific. I don't want. I like what you're saying.
Yeah.
You need to be very specific in that you're not recreating or redistributing any copyrighted or IP-related art.
Yeah.
I think a Resident Evil Outbreak servers.
I think there's two answers to this. The one answer is the theoretical and conceptual one, that if you were able to listen to the question that the game asks to the server and then figure out, based on that, what do I have to answer for the game to work? And you can do that without actually copying any of the code in the server, then you're probably okay from a copyright perspective. In fact, kind of similar and kind of adjacent to that, the German Supreme Court was just last week or 2 weeks ago decided an anti-cheat case where the cheat module, all it did was change values in the memory. It didn't change any of the code. And they said, well, there's no copyright infringement here because you're not modifying any of the code. You're just changing variables in the memory. And so you can theoretically do that. But practically, and I know this from cases I've worked on, it's not so easy, and it's usually not practically possible, at least in more sophisticated games, to emulate the proper server response without taking some of the stuff that's protected within the technology of the server, and then you'd be infringing.
Yeah. Sorry, that is exactly on point. Is that it's very hard to find where to draw that line when you're talking about what of this is protected and what isn't. There are broad rights for interoperability and sort of looking at how something works and sort of making your own thing that allows it to work. But there's so many lines in there, and one of the things that any copyright lawyer would tell you is once you start talking about fair use, you've already kind of lost. You're starting from a point of infringement and trying to get out of it. So it's a right that I strongly respect, and I hope that we can have some broad rights to reverse engineering. But it just is one of those issues that starts to touch a lot of lines, and so it's very fact specific. But that's the hard part, is driving the line between what are the copyrighted assets and what are the things that are required for that functionality. And you can see that with some of the API cases that were decided, where just a little too much of the APIs were copied, but were they really necessary for just answering? So it's a tough question. And then there are other rights involved besides just straight copyrights.
There's a third answer, which is talk to a lawyer. We do that.
And just to add, the silver lining too with what you said is that this is a problem with legacy tech throughout. There are going to be community responses and, like I said, legal communities able to help at scale, because this is not just something that the video game industry is going through.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Totally. Thank you for the question. You had your hand up earlier.
Yeah, this actually ties into that, and I guess the stop killing games thing. I've done server emulation for older games before, where I've just reverse engineered the game and then let's see what data are you looking to see from the server. The bare minimum that people would like from a technical standpoint that I would like to see from a stop killing games movement is that when a game sunsets, if they publish any documentation they have in their protocols, that would from a developer standpoint that would be the bare minimum of what I would like to see from them. It's just okay, the game's dead. What are your server protocols?
Noted.
And I would be interested to see what the viability of that.
You're assuming there's more documentation that happens in game dev. There's a lot of duct tape and hopes and dreams.
It's just some guy I call it.
Yeah, Dave, please.
I was going to say, like that, Joe, that's a very good point about the documentation. Sometimes I'm shocked by the lack of it.
But it's a fair point. I like that. I like the thought.
I'm going to channel kind of what I imagine some of my clients would reply to that, where they would say, well, just because we switched off the server for this one doesn't mean we're not using the same or similar tech for other games that are still running. And obviously, we are not telling you how to use that, right? So there's always that.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. All right.
And there was a question there, guy in the black shirt.
You
raised your hand a couple of times.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. These two have asked the questions I wanted to ask, and they did it in a much more intelligent way.
Ben Bravo. All right. Yes.
Got one for the gentleman on the end because I think it'll probably loop you in more, but I'd love to hear from everyone anyways. Will there ever be a strict definition of what is considered to be transformative, like creative work based on copywritten or currently existing copy protected work?
Will we ever know what transformative use is the question.
I think the answer is no, because we don't know what kind of uses are going to be out there, right? I mean, just recently we were having a brand new debate about whether or not generating a large language model is a transformative use when you start from a whole bunch of books. So I think we benefit from having a really flexible definition of that. It can be frustrating to not have like clear guidance, but I think that that's part of what allows the law to sort of adapt to how different things are today versus the days of the printing press. So I expect that it will continue to be an expanding definition, but I doubt that we'll get really clear guidance on where it goes.
So I'm going to do a total plug out of left field. So you saw in the back the guy with the swag. So I work on the swag team, and this year they let me make a game, essentially. If you play to the end of the game for the 2026 MAGFest swag, there is a discussion on transformative use in game form, because they mistrusted me with the script. And so it's going to be really fun. It's really silly. Anyone else want to jump on that? Or any questions?
No.
Cool.
There were more questions.
It is a playable discussion. Yes. In the hack, yes.
Probably a very old topic by now, but patenting the Nemesis system is about halfway through its lifespan since the original game came out.
Yep.
Without, I guess, putting your job too much in jeopardy, what have you guys seen come up as a result of that? Has there been any other precedent or opposing works that have come out, or has there been any other ramifications that have come out in 9, 10 years since the original idea of patenting software like that has not been set?
I'm not sure I understand the question. So you're talking about like the expiration of patents and how it
So more like companies generating patents on their works now fall more into software rather than mechanical processing.
Yeah, I'm actually happy to field this one. I sort of decided that was one of the patents that I'd be willing to talk very directly about, as we usually kind of dodge that because maybe someday Warner Brothers will hire me. But no, the Nemesis patent is a great example of sort of where we're at as far as what can't be patented. And I would take a stance that I think that patent is a pretty bad patent. It's on what feels like a pure gameplay method. And software patents have attempted to evolve to a point where you can't really just protect the idea of doing something, sort of the rules of a game or sort of the big picture. You're supposed to protect the how, the technical underlying stuff. So a proper patent on something like the Nemesis system would be related to exactly how you connect everything in the back end of the database and sort of track these things going forward. And so we do see plenty of patents like that, both in games and in software more generally, that are just very high level. And we've seen a lot of those go down in court. So they go down for invalidity under abstract ideas. That's been the hottest issue in software patents for my entire career of 15 years. And it's no different in the gameplay space. So there's a big difference between the amount of look something gets at the U.S. Patent Office versus how much look it gets when it gets litigated. And so, you know, a patent examiner will spend 20, 30 hours on something against a lawyer who gets paid a lot more and has a lot more time to sort of argue with them. But when these things go to court, a lot of times they get shut down for that reason. And so as far as trends in the industry, we see far fewer of those patents.
Good questions. We're so in the weeds. I like it. Yes, in the back.
So on the topic of like reverse engineering, maybe some pirated, discontinued servers or games, would it be more effective to host those like pirated multiplayer games in countries that don't respect?
So the question is, can I go overseas to host my pirated shit? Talk to a lawyer. I think. Next question. Yes.
Yeah. So antitrust came up a few minutes ago, and something I'm kind of curious about is, you know, when I see something like the Microsoft Activision merger or acquisition or whatever it was go through, it sort of makes me wonder if antitrust in the United States has any teeth, or if, you know, Teddy Roosevelt is rolling over in his grave, and the American judiciary only exists to transfer wealth to the American oligopoly. So, is that the case? Is that the case?
Roosevelt might be rolling over in his grave for right now.
He's also dead.
Yeah, that's hence why he's rolling in his grave.
Right. No, yes.
So, yeah, I mean, that's sort of the thing where I'm like, well, if that's allowed to happen, it sort of seems like, I mean, is the situation just that as long as there are literally at least 2 companies that exist in a sector, then, or at least 3 rather, then any merger is allowed to happen? Like, sort of makes me nervous that we don't have a lot of protection here.
I gotta say, this is the spiciest Q&A I've ever been. I'm so for it.
They were making fun of me for researching before. Serious question, in terms of, like, I want to put it back to you. You really feel like antitrust right now is not having a moment? So, like, seriously, I mean, do you feel like right now, I thought the antitrust energy in DC, where Scott and I are, is pretty heavy. Like, I feel like there's companies that
is having a moment.
Yeah. No, it's okay though. It's a perception does matter, right? If people don't feel like it's working, that's an issue. But I also ask, contrary, like
I may well be underinformed. Please.
No, it's fair. No, I'm just saying there's a couple of antitrust cases that have happened now, and they're talking about Google as a browser being shut out, like cut out from Google and things like that. It might be worth taking a look and seeing, like,
right.
No,
but
seriously.
I guess, yeah. I mean, in that case, at times it seems like it may be being used as a political cudgel against companies that are not in favor of.
Yeah, you're saying that laws are being used as a political cudgel in the United States?
I mean, you know.
So funny.
I think
someone turn down the thermostat.
Sorry, I don't mean to be flip about it. I'm sorry,
I think that we can have some fun ideas, some fun with the question, but the point is none of us are antitrust specialists, and I think that kind of as consumers we might have some of the same opinions as you. It does feel like it's a strong area of the law sounding on paper, but it's always been about application and practice, and certainly antitrust is used to extract a lot of concessions, but we are all consumers and we see the environment that we have, and enforcement does come down to a political question as much as it is a legal question.
I don't know, David, you want to say anything? Pass. Okay.
I was wondering if you guys have been keeping track of the Nintendo versus Power World.
Oh, hey.
I refer to my Warner Brothers comments and stop.
Okay. Yeah. Anyone who hasn't had a question? Yes. Oh, right here. Sorry, in the back. Then we'll get to you next.
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut off your question. If it was more generally about the nature of the patents, if you had a different question, I'll entertain.
Well, one of it that I heard Nintendo was changing the patents.
So I did see that news, and this is something that I really did think needed to be cleared up. So that's very routine, that companies continue to prosecute a patent throughout its life. You can have a patent pending, and you can you're entitled to come back and claim whatever was in your patent originally. You're not expected to figure it out on the first go. So having a family of patents that keeps going, that happens in nearly every case. So I think that the gaming media sort of made that out to be some really evil, nefarious thing, and that happens in literally every case.
All right, in the back, and then we'll get to your names, okay? Yep, go. That's you. You're in the back. Yes, that's you.
Oh, I am going back.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's both the same direction. So, I think my question is a very similar vein. Is how do you feel about patents maybe being enforced retroactively, being like for things that came out before the patent, or even if it's healthy for like a creative environment and for developing both now and in the future, promoting creativity in the game space.
Yeah, I'll try to be brief because we are talking a lot about patents. But I think that patents are important for sort of protecting ideas that are very easy to copy once they're out there, and sort of for providing a reward for the work that goes into coming up with those ideas. Sort of to the initial premise of patenting things that enforcing against things that came out before the patent was ever a thing. That's in theory not possible because then it would be prior art and it would invalidate the patent. What you're seeing is sort of a lag due to how government filings work. You file a patent and then it takes multiple years for it to finally issue, but everything has to be examined as, was this new as of the date that it started, as of the date of its original filing. So as far as innovation goes, I think that certainly the IP system is not perfect, but I think it has led to a pretty robust technical situation here. It's always had to be flexible, and I would just go back, I would sort of end with, I think copyrights are way more important in the gaming space than patents. Patents are just having a moment right now.
Oh yeah, I had a follow-up question to the very first question earlier about like playing games long term. So like specifically in the case of storefronts, like let's say I bought a game from the Nintendo 3DS eShop and then the eShop shut down, so I can't get my games anymore. Is there any legislation in the US or like Germany that addresses that, or not really?
The stuff that I've seen in the U.S. around games ownership, again, it's been mostly about the unfair and deceptive practice. You know, so it's people just basically saying that I didn't know. And California passed a bill that was all about like disclosures, and you have to like tell people at the point of sale that like they don't own the thing. And I don't think that really moves the needle a whole lot, but it was like something that's different in Europe.
It might be different in Europe, but practically, if they close down that storefront, you could maybe make an argument that, oh, they should have told me to download my stuff before they removed the option to download it. But I think the way that the legislator and honestly also the courts will look at this is like, well, you bought this like a while ago, you should have downloaded it. Why do you not have it anymore? That's your problem. Like if you buy a book and then you've read it and then you throw it away, and you can't go back and say, oh, give me the book again, I bought it from you. So I know that those two are different things, but that's kind of the mindset of legislators and courts. Again, I think that the law is going to develop on this as more and more stuff becomes purely digital, and we experience this movement of physical things becoming digital things. But of course the law always, and this is kind of an opening it up comment towards the end, right? The law always lags behind those developments considerably, because the people that make the law and then the people that interpret the law are much, much older than anyone in this room usually. And so their experience, when they say, oh, I know video games, they're like, yeah, because I played Tetris when I was in, I don't know, university, and so I know video games, right? And they'll just have a completely different perspective and won't realize that today you have a massive library of games, but they don't all fit in the memory of your device, so you'll download and delete and download and delete. And we'll get to a point where there will be a protection there. But it might not solve the problem for those devices, because what would happen today if they told you you have to download all the games for this legacy device that you own? You wouldn't have anywhere to store them, right? So I think there's going to be a development that will address some of these concerns in some way. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I think there will also be, there will need to be some adjustment of consumer expectations for when I will pay money for this thing, and it will give me entertainment for a certain amount of time, but it will not be conceptually forever, and my kids and their kids will inherit this. I mean, I have a big encyclopedia. You kids don't even know what an encyclopedia is anymore. But it was printed in 1905, and I inherited it from my grandmother, and it's great, but I don't use it to actually look up stuff. If I did that, and honestly, if she had used it more to look up stuff, it wouldn't look as pristine anymore right now. And the same is true of like cassette tapes and records and all that stuff. All that stuff, if you used it a lot, it would break too. It would disappear. It was just in a different way. And nobody would say, oh, I don't know, Universal Music has to give me another record because this one is now a little bit scratched and it jumps and it doesn't sound good anymore after I listened to it non-stop for 10 years of my life.
So basically, what you're saying is entropy is the natural order of the universe. Deal with it. All right. We are almost at time. This has been like the most substantive legal panel in like 10 years of doing this. So give yourselves a round of applause. Usually you get questions like, what's it like being a lawyer? You guys are digging in, and I'm super into it. I'm super here for it. Any other questions?
I was going to say, can I do a panelist privilege and ask David if he, because it's so cool to have someone who's like right there at the cusp right now. I'm having a nerd moment him being on here, so I kind of wanted to see if David put him on the spot and see if he wanted to pontificate about anything. Is that okay?
Yeah, well, I was going to ask if anyone had any questions, because David's the only one who's in house right now. So, questions about, David.
I have one more question, kind of follows up the first question and then what she said, but nobody ever addressed like the companies breaking your console.
Companies breaking your console?
Yeah, like he said you don't have space to download your games. What if I wanted to modify my console so it did have space, but I can't because if I do, they'll break my console. But I bought the console, it's mine.
Yeah, I know, but
so,
they don't have to keep...
Wait, I couldn't quite hear that. I was saying that
it was the same modding your console, like the sort of, I bought the console, I should be able to mod it.
Well, first of all, love mods, more software mods than hardware mods, at least in my job. But I think if you mod your console and it breaks, you can't really expect that the company is necessarily going to fix it for you. If we're talking, in the discussion before, by the way, like I was thinking, live service games, like, if you have a single player game and it, and there have been examples of this where the single player game that has to phone home for no gameplay or other reason other than they want more metrics, like I think the answer to that kind of thing is actually market forces, much more so than legislation, because in the examples I'm aware of where that happened, it got real bad and the company had to reverse course very quickly and say okay, well, there's no reason you can't play the single player game off without an internet connection, so here you go, here's an update, you know what I mean? So that's my thought on that sort of issue.
Yeah, it's funny because we spent so much time on patents. We have so many privacy lawyers on this panel. But yeah, the data issues are absolutely front and center, right? If you're talking about consoles have to be updated, like modern consoles, because they are online experiences and they're designed that way. They need to be able to communicate with the central server. And again, I'm no expert on client to server integration, but it's tricky, right? Because if you have a modded client, a modded device that's able to communicate with the server and potentially able to cause a lot of mayhem, there just needs to be more protections in place around, well, oh man, you've modded this thing to send hundreds of thousands of requests per second to our server and it's overloading our stuff.
IoT device, no,
it was cheating.
Botnets, no, botnets is exactly what happens, right? They take your modded thing, they turn it into a weapon against everybody else, and then people are like, yo, my, the name of this store I can't pronounce sold me this thing, and I'm not saying that's what you're doing, I get what you're saying. Hey, look, I want to customize it. Why is it that I should be able to customize the device? And I like the idea in theory about having approved type modules you can buy and things like that. I do like the idea of adapting your things, but he's right. I mean, there's the security implications. We see that all the time with IoT devices that They don't talk security to each other. They turn into weapons against people. And one time a judge had to sign off and say, you can turn those off for me. You have to turn them off in order to protect the rest of the network. Because if it wasn't a network issue, if it was just a strictly, non-online experience, it might be a different conversation. But the online experience is what turns it into a weapon against other people.
Thank you. Wow, this was like such a cool panel. I'm really glad we got into it. I'm really glad we didn't drink more before.
Can I get a compliment to Joe real quick? I'm sorry, I gotta do this.
No, you may not. We're out of time. All right, but stick around. Thank you guys. Give this panel a round of applause. Come talk to us. Yeah,